busy with work lately. So for today, I would like us to discuss about the holistic steps or maybe things that makes up an impairment, the list, what and what is involved when we talk about impairment in individuals. So let's just talk. One is specific learning disability. When I talk about the specific learning disability, it includes, let's just say, individuals that find it very difficult to learn. For an example, let me just say maybe most of us have been encountered with people that no matter how long you teach them how to read a comprehension or write an article, maybe repetition. Once you've taught them how to read this, maybe you've taught them for 1 week, and after a week, maybe just a little comprehension, a very short note. After a week that you must have taught them consistently, you still feel that when you've given them that task to carry on with what you've taught them, they still feel that they can't. Within them, they still can't read that comprehension. Despite the fact that you spend much time, much energy, believing that they can read the comprehension at the end of the week or maybe at the end of the lesson, you still find them slacking back. They are still not capable of reading the comprehension. So, second one is language or speech impairment. When we talk about language or speech impairment, I believe language or speech impairment, when we talk about language, it involves speaking, maybe talking to someone, maybe defending yourself, or maybe anything that involves speaking out. That's all it means by language or speech impairment. When we talk about this particular impairment, it involves people that find it very difficult to pronounce, to speak up. Maybe let's just say, I think stammerers, someone that stammers is a good example for that. If you have encountered or you've been with someone that stammers, you know at times to alter a word is always very difficult for them to. For you to be able to speak or make a speech, it must go through a language. Because if there is no language for you to communicate with whosoever that you want to speak with, there will never be any communication. So when we talk about language or speech impairment, it involves speaking. And a good example of this set of individual or people living with such impairment are stammerers. People that cannot conveniently speak up. It's always difficult for them to say something. Another thing, there are people that has issue, maybe let's just say with their tongue. I don't know, I've forgotten what they call them, but I will kind of go back and research again. For them to pronounce some words is always difficult for them. And at times you have some kids, you can see a child that as he or she is growing up, it takes them time to start that speech, to start communicating. I could remember there's this little baby back then, I think that's up to 6 years, still can comfortable or conveniently speak up or communicate with the mom. You can see a child of 4 years, 3 years, they'll start saying, mama, papa. That's their early stage of communication. That should be their first step of communication. They've started communicating. But there is some at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, they still find it difficult to communicate with individuals, to even communicate their thought to the family, to communicate their thought to the mom or dad. So those kind of people, we call them people living with what, or individuals with speech or language impairments. And a good example of this individual are stammerers. We have stone stammerers, the ones that if they are always quiet and for them to speak is always a problem. There are individuals with speech and language impairment. And thirdly, we have intellectual disability and emotional disturbance. Intellectual disability is kind of mental retardation. Let's just say mental retardation And when we talk about retard, it means something that doesn't grow, something that never expands, something that doesn't welcome growth. That's what we say retard, something that doesn't grow, retardation, a retard growth. So, and again, we have what? Emotional disturbance. Emotional disturbance, let's just say individuals that are depressed because their emotions are being disturbed, because there are issues that hinders them from what? Being academically successful, being socially successful. These are the people that we say that they are emotionally impaired. You yourself could still remember, if you are emotionally disturbed, if there is an issue that bugs you, you believe, and you and I can believe, that you can have any successful, let's just say in a week, nothing goes around you will be successful. Anything that you are trying to put out, it will never be successful. So when we talk about those individuals, we say that they are emotionally impaired. And for an individual to be emotionally impaired, academically, the person won't do well. Fourth is hearing impairment. When we talk about hearing impairments, you should know individuals that can't hear. Although there are some individuals that are deaf, they are critical deaf. And there are some people that maybe, it's not that they are deaf, but it's just that sometimes they can't hear. They can't hear properly. They can hear at times, but it's not a proper one. Let's just say they can hear 35% of whatsoever, or the noise, or whatsoever you say, 35% of the environmental noise, but their hearing is not 100% accurate, or let's just say 80% accurate. So these are people that will say that hearing impairment, they have issues with their ear. And sometimes you see individuals, although some children are born that way, you can see a child with a hearing aid, and that hearing aid helps the child to have speedy connection. It magnates noise or speech sound, so it conveys the information to the baby or to the child's ear, so the person will be able to get the whole information of whatsoever the person is saying, or whatsoever that is happening within his or her environment. So individuals that can't hear properly, or individuals that are deaf, so we say that such individual has issue, or is living with what? Individual with hearing impairment. And such an individual needs what? A hearing aid, a technical hearing aid. So among few of others, we have autism, traumatic brain injury, maybe accidental, people that maybe because they got themselves involved in an accident in one way or the other, so their brain can't function well. Autism, let's just say people that find it very difficult to hold a relationship or communicate with others. And another one, visual impairments. When we talk about visual impairments, we know people that can't see properly. They can't see. So you people must have heard about the school of the blind. So they are the blind ones. Individuals that are blind, we say that they are individuals that are with what? Visual impairments, brain injury, maybe that's a trauma. And individuals that has this traumatic brain injury due to them being involved in a gastromotor accident and other things, they are also emotionally affected. And they are individuals, an impairment that we know as developmental delay. When we talk about this developmental delay, I can remember there's this auntie of mine that gave birth to a child, and let's just say children at the age of 4, between the age of 3 and age of 4, they should, some, let's just say 95 or 85% of kids at such age must have started walking. I didn't say running, I only say walking. They might have started. I'm not, let's just say that this is not accurate. It's not scientifically proven, let's just say it that way. So kids that are such age 3 or 4 might have started walking. So this I would just say my nephew couldn't. My nephew couldn't walk till my nephew got to the age of 7. That's an example. This is among the reason why we say developmental delay. And also, I can remember I said something like language or speech impairment. There are some kids that way too. They find it difficult, early development for speech or language, for pronunciation. That's also part of developmental delay. But the critical developmental delay here, you see that at times this affects kids for them to get enrolled, for them to be educationally, academically enrolled. They won't be into school because they can't walk. You can't put a child that can't walk properly, you can't enroll a child that can't walk properly into a school. No, it's not proper. Doing it that way means that maybe you really don't care about your child. So all this developmental delay accumulated can also be known as what? Impairment. Because anything impairment is something, an issue that hinders the development of an individual. An issue that hinders an individual successfully delivering or doing something that others can do without being hindered. So this developmental delay, I think there was a time I heard something like someone's brain is not yet well developed to kind of do some activities. I've heard such before. Or for an example, someone had an accident, and that accident led the person to what? Starting from stage 1, from the basic, to start what? You learn how to walk. Yeah, such an accident exists. They start to learn how to walk just like a normal toddler. After learning how to walk, they'll start again to eat, to feed themselves. Because during the interval of the accident, within that time, someone was feeding them. At the time, the medical doctor involved might say, oh, this person is time for he or she to start to learn from the basic. You learn how to walk, they learn how to feed themselves, take a shower, and also do other things to dress up themselves. In this situation, you can say the person, after the accident, ghastly motor accident, the person started to have a developmental delay, which get the person involved with starting from basic learning, to learn how to care for themselves, to learn how to do other things. And another thing, this developmental delay can be also come in contact with individuals that find it difficult to learn. They're always behind. They lag behind whenever it comes to academically. Others might be ahead of them, they will still be at the back trying to catch up with with the lessons that others must have learned everything about it. So this is also part of it, developmental delay. So these impairments are steps and types that different individuals live with. Those impairments that I mentioned today are the impairment that individuals live with. If an individual is not living with emotional disturbance, the person might be living with visual. If the person is not living with visual, the person might be living with hearing impairment. So these are the impairments that affect individuals. And also, when we talk about all those impairments are all gathered to form special needs. All those individuals that have such impairment, they have special needs because they have impairments, because they are living with impairments, because they are individuals with impairments, they have special needs. And these special needs must be provided. An individual that has special needs of what's visual impairment, the person has a special need because you must provide a tech that the person can use to be able to read or study. Of course, when someone has an issue, let's just say hearing, someone with hearing impairment, there must be a special need provided for the individual to be able to what? Receive information. So developmental delay impairment, there must be a special need provided for the person to tag along. Although you can't skyrocket the person to be at the same level with the gifted child, no. There must be a way to sort out this particular individual's special needs. Any individual living with disability, any individual living with impairment must have a special need. And that special need is to sort out the issue of his or her impairment. Issue, let's just say hearing, someone with hearing impairment